Hello, this is Claus Jensen, and welcome to another game from the hands of a Danish GM, Bent Larsen. This time you're about to watch a game from the Candidates Tournament in 1968. As winner of the Interzonal in Zeus in 1967, Larsen was automatically qualified as one of the 8 players who would be playing knockout matches to decide who would get the chance to play a match for the world title against the reigning world champion at that time, Tigran Petrosian. His opponent in the quarterfinal was to be Lajos Portisch. Portisch ended 5th in Zeus 1967, so he had to beat Reshevsky in a playoff match to qualify for the Candidates Tournament. Coming into this match, I think Larsen was a marginal favorite, although their overall career encounters clearly was favoring Portisch. I think at this point of their careers, Larsen was the stronger player of the two. But in this match, Larsen had to struggle for the victory. And in fact, coming into this 10th and decisive game of the match, the score is even. They have had 5 draws and 2 wins each at this point. So it's obviously a very important game, and this is perhaps why we see a slightly untypical game from the two. It's a short game, and it ends in a lot of tactical complications, which is quite unusual for both players who were both known for a more positional style. So let's get on with the game. Larsen is white, Portisch is black. We're watching the 10th game of the Candidates Tournament quarterfinal in Portisch, Croatia. And Larsen opens e4, e5, and now knight c3, Vienna game. Very calm opening from Larsen in this important game. Knight c6, bishop c4. And now Portisch invites Larsen to a 2 knights defense, which can lead to a very sharp play. But Larsen doesn't play knight f3 here. He plays d3 instead. Another calm move. And already here in this early stage of the game, Portisch makes a decision that he wants to take the c4 bishop out of play. So he plays knight a5. And in this position, I think many players would automatically play bishop b3. But I think Larsen is reasoning like this. Why would I move a piece twice if it's to be swapped off anyway? That would be a waste of time. I'd rather go for development, and in any case, after black taking on c4, I can get a very nice grip on the d5 square. So I think I'll go for normal development instead. And this is why Larsen doesn't play bishop b3, he played knight g to e2 instead. And after taking on c4, we can now see what Larsen was thinking here. We can see that the e4 and the c4 pawns are both controlling the d5 square. And this is making it very hard for black to play d5 at any point. And this is this bind on d5 is in some way part of the decision of this game, as we shall see later. Since d5 is not playable for black in the near future, black has to decide whether to put his bishop on c5 or e7, because if he puts it on c5 and then later plays d6, then this bishop is no longer part of the defense on the king side. It's of course more aggressive, pointing down to the white king side, but it's also not helping in defense, as I said before. So Portisch actually decides to play it to e7 instead, and then follows castles d6, b3. This move is of course planning bishop b2, but it's also protecting the c4 pawn, which could be under attack if black decides to play bishop e6 at any point. Castles, knight g3, c6, bishop b2, and now queen a5 from Portisch, and he's of course seeking some activity on the queen side. And now Larsen plays queen e1, which is sort of setting up a positional trap, you could say, because it's not because there's so much in it, but if black would play a normal move like bishop d7, for example, then knight d5, threatening the queen on a5, and threatening the bishop on e7, so queen d8 is forced, and then knight takes f6, bishop takes, rook d1, threatening d6, and then queen c7, queen d2, and here white is having a very strong pressure on the weak d6 pawn. So it's not decisive in any way, but it with tempo it gives white a very nice pressure on d6, and another option for black could be to play bishop e6 in this position, but then again white could play knight d5, again threatening the queen on a5, and queen d8, knight takes e7, queen takes e7, c5. White is now getting rid of his double pawn, and the e5 pawn is now a target. Or black could take on c5, and then bishop takes e5 would make this bishop very strong, much stronger than it was before. So this would be another good line for white. But of course Portisch saw all this, and he played queen c7, and then came a4 from Larsen, which is a more prophylactic move. He knows that black's main plan is to play for the b5 push, and this is why he played a4 to shut down that move in the near future. So he's not only shutting down the b5 push and also the d5 push. So it's hard for black to find counterplay at this point. Bishop e6 followed, rook d1, a6, and queen e2. And again, I spoke of the plans just before. It's clear that that black wants to play b5, also because b5 could help getting rid of the c4 pawn, which would make the d5 push easier. So this is clearly what the black objective is in this position. White, on the other hand, is of course seeking play either on the king side or in the center, or perhaps a combination of the two. He can apply pressure on d6 by doubling rooks and play knight f5, for example. He might also go for an f4 push at some point. So black is planning to play on the queen side, and white is planning to play in the center and or on the king side. Portisch here plays bishop g4, forcing f3, and then bishop d7, supporting a future b5 push. King h1, removing the king from the a7 g1 diagonal. Rook 8 b8, again supporting the b5 push. Very logical moves. And another logical move is now knight f5. It is threatening the bishop on e7, and it's putting pressure on d6. So black is practically forced to take the knight. But taking the knight with the bishop on d7 also removes one of the pieces that should support the b5 push for black. So so this is the logic behind the knight f5 move. Bishop takes, e takes, and now Portisch plays rook f e8. And the reasoning behind here is that now that the white e4 pawn is gone, it's on f5 now, then the d5 push is all of a sudden becoming more realistic to play at some point. But before playing d5, black would like to have some protection of the e5 pawn. So this is why he puts a rook in the e file. Larsen preparing doubling the rooks in the d file, and of course also Portisch puts a rook in the d file to prepare the d5 push at some point. Rook fd1, doubling the rooks, and now it's clear that all the game is about the d6 pawn at this point It's also clear that that black is having three defenders of the d6 pawn at this point: the queen, the rook, and the bishop. And it's hard for black to get more defenders. So there's no doubt that in the long run he would like to play d5. And Portisch decides that to be able to play d5, he has to make a little knight maneuver, which would also free up his f pawn to play f6 at some point. So he plays knight f and knight h5. He wants to go to f4, where it still supports the d5 push. Larsen simply continues bishop a3 to attack the d6 pawn once again, and after knight f4, queen f2, then we can see that that here when Larsen can play knight e4, then there are 4 attackers on the d6 pawn, so black really has to do something here, as I spoke of just before. So he decides that the d5 push is necessary, and to prepare it, he plays queen a5. It might seem a little desperate, but anyway, he had no way to protect this pawn in the long run, so he might as well go for the d5 push. But unfortunately for Portisch, Larsen has made some good calculations here. So after knight e4, attacking the d6 pawn, d5, this is now leading to a very sharp game. But Larsen has calculated the position just right. He takes on e7, and after rook takes e7, we have a very complicated position with a lot of tactics involved, and Larsen now plays queen h4 with the intention to trap this f4 knight after g3. But there is a good move for black in this position. He could have played the good f6 here, because then after G3, knight E2, then of course rook takes E2 doesn't work, because then D takes E4, and rook takes, queen takes E4 is of course leaving Larsen pawn up in this rook and queen endgame. But the extra pawn is a double pawn in the C file, and this would be very difficult to win for white. Another try, better than rook takes E2 here, is knight takes F6. Then G takes, rook takes E2. This is leaving Larsen with better chances, but still this would be a very hard endgame to win. So there's no doubt that F6 here is the best shot for Portisch, but he plays rook ED7, and then follows G3 as planned, knight E2. Still the rook, the knight cannot be taken here, because of D takes E. But now follows a very strong move, F6 from Larsen, a very tactical move, and this is winning in all variations. Knight D4, for example, then rook takes, E takes, queen G5, and now mate is just around the corner, G6, queen H6. So that's not possible. So Portisch plays queen B4, preparing queen F8 to support the G7 spot, G7 square. But then queen G4 came, and this is of course not only threatening the mate on G7, but it's also pointing at D7, so that if rook takes E2, then after D takes E4, then the rook on D7 is hanging. So Portisch resigned the game here. He could of course have tried G6, rook takes E2, H5, queen H3, but still the queen is pointing at D7, and therefore this knight cannot be taken, because then rook takes D7. So Portisch is simply losing a piece here, and he thought it was not worth playing on in this hopeless position. As I said before this game, I find it quite unusual that a game between these players should end in a tactical battle, but it did, and Larsen was calculating better than his opponent, and this meant that Larsen progressed to the candidate tournament's semi-final, where Boris Spassky was waiting. More on that match in another video, I'm sure. I hope you enjoyed this game from the candidate tournament's quarterfinal in Portisch, Croatia in 1968, and I hope to see you on my blog at klausjensen.com. Bye bye for now.